Okay, so as we learn, the Civil War is going to start in 1861. And what you're looking at right now is a map of what the United States of America looked like in 1861. Now, real quick, something super duper important is a nickname for the United States of America. You probably heard it referred to as the USA or United States or just the US. But another term that we can use to describe the United States of America, just kind of a nickname, is the Union. So when I talk about the Union coming up, I'm referring to our country, the United States of America. So if you look at 1861, we are now built up to 33 states. And while our country has been growing, we've been focusing on keeping that balance. And we've had many compromises along the way to kind of keep the peace during the growth of our country. Now, if you take a look at this map, you can see with the key there that the mustard yellow colored states are the free states, and the red colored states are our slave states. And again, slave states are the states that the law says that the state would allow slavery. So you can kind of see the balance there, and it kind of definitely looks like there's a distinct split between the free states up here in the north and the slave states down here in the south. Now, obviously, we're going to have some of these free states over here in the west, California and Oregon, because when California and Oregon became states with the gold rush, they didn't need slaves, so they joined as free states. So you can kind of see the setup here of our country. So let's get into an overview of the Civil War. I want you to understand the big picture before we start to break it down into the little details. So between the years 1860 and 1861, 11 states in the Union, 11 states in the United States of America decided they didn't want to be part of the United States of America anymore. And they decided to secede, which means break away from the United States of America and form their own country. So I'm going to show you which of those 11 states it was. If you take a look at the map on the left, now obviously the land itself in reality didn't break away, but that's just showing you the 11 states that chose to decide that they didn't want to be part of the United States of America anymore. They wanted to secede and become their own country. So you're looking at Texas and Arkansas, Tennessee and Virginia, North and South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Florida. So if we want to know what do all of those 11 states have in common, well, if you look at the map on the right, you'll notice that all 11 of those states are slave states. And that's not a coincidence. Those 11 states, those 11 slave states together decided we don't want to be part of the United States of America. We want to become our own country. So obviously, these 11 states needed to give their new country a name, and they chose to name their country the Confederate States of America. And if you look up the word Confederate, it really is just a synonym or another word for united, togetherness. And a nickname, the same way Union is a nickname for United States of America, the nickname for the Confederate States of America, they're sometimes referred to as the Confederacy. So these 11 states, the Confederate States of America, as they called themselves, wanted to become their own country. And so if we kind of take a look at this map and break down some vocabulary, we have the United States of America here versus the Confederate States of America here. USA, CSA, Union, Confederacy. And a lot of people would often refer to the United States as the North. The Union would be the North, because if you look, it's kind of the northern part. And on the other side, a lot of people refer to the Confederacy as the South. So you can kind of see some of that vocabulary there. Very important to understand that. So if you think about this, the Union does not want to let the Confederacy go. They want to keep the country together, and they're willing to fight if they need to bring the Confederacy back. On the opposite side, the Confederacy wants to become their own country, and they're willing to fight to make that happen. So if you think about the Civil War is a war of Americans versus Americans. You can see the starting date of the Civil War is April 12th, 1861. And what's interesting about the Civil War is it lasts half as long as the Revolutionary War did. In fact, it lasted almost exactly 4 years. You can see it starts on April 12th and will end on April 9th of 1865. Now, we are going to use this shape to kind of describe the events that take place during the Civil War. And I use the shape on purpose. The shape of this timeline really shows how the war went during the Civil War. So let's take a look here. We have it's the Union versus the Confederacy, the United States versus those Confederate states. So who do you think won the Civil War? I'm kind of giving away the ending before we even begin. Well, we got to think this one through a little bit. The Confederacy is fighting to become their own country. So ask yourself, do we have two separate countries today? Hopefully you know that the answer is no. And so clearly the Union won the Civil War. And they brought the Confederacy back. So if you take a look at this timeline and the shape of this timeline, the shape tells how the war goes for the Union. When the war begins, it's going downhill here. The war doesn't go very well for the Union. But then we hit what is called the turning point of the war. This is when things start to turn around for the Union, and things get better and better and better for the Union until finally on April 9th, 1865, the Union will win the Civil War. So again, a couple of things I want you to remember is, one, the Civil War lasted 4 years. And another interesting thing here, hopefully you've heard of the Battle of Gettysburg. The Battle of Gettysburg is one of our turning point battles. Again, the turning point is when things in the war start to turn around for, in this case, the Union. And what makes the Battle of Gettysburg such an important battle, one, for us, we live an hour away from Gettysburg. You can actually go to the battlefield where the Battle of Gettysburg took place. But two, the Battle of Gettysburg was such an important battle in the Civil War because it was that turning point battle. Again, guys, the Civil War, Americans versus Americans. One more quick thing that I want to explain to you that you may be curious about. Again, this is a war, the North versus the South. But if you take a look here, we have obviously those blue free states, those dark blue free states. We have those red slave states. But on this map, we have some of these light blue states. And I want to explain what those are. First off, take a look at our free and slave state and try and figure out, are those light blue states free or slave? If you look, you can kind of see a matchup here with this one, with Missouri over here. So you can see that all of these light blue states, they are slave states. But what makes them unique, what makes them different than the other slave states, is that we call these slave states border states, because these slave states decided to stay with the Union when those 11 states seceded. These are the only slave states in the United States of America that did not break away and secede from the United States. So we call these states border states. These border states are going to play a huge role during the Civil War. Your final task for today is you are going to go to the next slide where you will see these facts. And you're just going to read through some really interesting fast facts about the Civil War that America fought. And we will review these facts tomorrow, but I just want you to read through these 6 facts and maybe pick the one that you find to be the most interesting, and just keep that fact in the back of your mind, and we'll talk about it more tomorrow.